Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Az, and my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. And today, I really wanted to talk about our outside linebackers and just the progress that we're hopefully going to make this upcoming season with an injection of a few new players: Ellerson Smith, Aziz Ojulari, Ryan Anderson, and Versatility of Odenibo. These four guys represent a major upgrade compared to what we had to utilize last season. Carter Coughlin in the 7th round, and Jabal Shared, who we picked up off Jacksonville's practice squad. And it is actually mesmerizing how much the coaching staff managed to get out of those two guys that really shouldn't have even been on the field to begin with. I think Carter Coughlin will play a role this year. He might even make a transition to middle linebacker. He's a fast, kind of rangy guy. Could probably play a run-stuffing type of linebacker. Needs some more experience in coverage, of course, but he really was traditionally a pass rusher with Minnesota and the Gophers. So making the transition to the NFL, he kind of might adjust to a utility base, and I think that will probably be the best way around, getting him some playing time, because now that there's so many other outside linebackers that are going to be competing for snaps and reps, going to be tough for him to crack this roster, crack this lineup of guys, Anthony. But I'm excited to talk about the variety of different talents we have, what they offer, our projections, what we think and who we think will be starting week 1. But how are you doing today, my friend? And what are you thinking about these outside linebackers?
I'm doing good, and I'm thinking that the Giants did a good job adding a nice stable of guys, nice talented group of guys to this defense at the edge rusher position, this outside linebacker edge rusher position. You can really call it either one because, yes, they're edge rushers in the base 3-4, but really the Giants have been running a lot of that nickel 3-3-5, and that outside linebacker is kind of a Sam. He does a lot of pass rushing, also does a lot of coverage stuff too. You're going to see that position do a lot of various different things and really just be a very diverse skill set kind of player. So I think that's going to be exciting to watch. And I think, you look at the guys that they brought in this offseason, right? Guys like Versatility of Odenibo, and you look at who they had last year, guys like Cam Brown, young guy with a lot of athleticism, and even had a couple clutch plays against the Bengals this past season. And Carter Coughlin was pretty much a contributor every single game that he was out there. Not like he was some elite game wrecker before, 6th or 7th round rookie. He was pretty solid. He had a very good rookie year, and I just see a lot of talented depth on this roster, and we're just waiting for that one guy to stand out as more than just depth and be that X factor on the edge. And I think that's going to be Aziz Ojulari, but there's a good chance it could also be Lorenzo Carter, and maybe even both of them combined together, pass rushing on each side. Maybe they will be able to combine together really well and both break out and have elite seasons. That's, best case scenario, but overall, it's just an exciting group of guys, a young group of guys with a whole lot of young players who are developing and a couple other older guys who are just looking for that breakout season. So I'm excited to see what they're able to do this year on this Giants defense that I expect to be a top 5 unit in the NFL potentially.
Yeah, I mean, front office went out and said, we are looking at our weaknesses and we are solving them. Even though we already had a top 10 defense last year, let's make it even better. Let's make it a top 5, top 2, maybe even the best unit in the NFL if all these pieces come together and everything is firing on all cylinders. They went into this offseason with 3 goals in mind, right? 1, solve the offense for Daniel Jones. Get him some weapons. Get him enough talent around him that he can, maximize and realize his potential. That was number 1. Number 2, get a couple of good pass rushers who can really upgrade this unit. And last year, like I said, Coughlin, Jabal Shared weren't doing much. Now we have those 4 guys I listed before, plus the return of Lorenzo Carter and Ocean Ximenez, who are head and shoulders above Carter Coughlin and Jabal Shared to begin with. So just those 2 guys coming back already offers a better rotation of pass rushers. But now there's a good chance Aziz Ojulari is pushing for starting snaps week 1. Personally, I think that will be the case because he, was probably one of the most underrated pass rushers in this past draft class. Dropping to 50 was an absolute miracle for the Giants. They managed to grab him and an additional 3rd-round pick just to move back a couple spots, and they still managed to get their guy. Keep in mind, 2 weeks before the draft, people were talking about drafting him at 11, let alone 50, okay? So that should give you an idea.
I'll even say I was guilty of that because I heard people talking about that, did that film breakdown pre-draft, and said if they took him at 11, which is what people are rumoring that they might do, I'd probably be happy with it. So I was really high on Aziz Ojulari. I love Ojulari, and when I saw them steal him in the 5th round, those of you who watched the live stream, I kind of freaked out. That was just the steal of the draft in my eyes.
And it might have been. It really might have been. The Giants, plus Ellerson Smith, which we'll talk about in a second, but Aziz Ojulari ranked 1st in sacks last year in the SEC with 9.5 and 1st in forced fumbles with 4. right? So not only did he get after the quarterback, he curated turnovers, which is what Patrick Graham loves, and it gives the ball back to your offense. He knows how to get to the football, and when he gets there, he uses those big, strong hands to knock the ball out. And I think that really kind of built upon his talents and really why he stood out in some of that tape, Anthony. There were a couple of big moments, big plays that he made where he came around the bend, he bent around the edge really, really nicely. And he already has experience against Andrew Thomas, who was one of the best offensive tackles in the draft last year. Maybe one of the best offensive tackles in college football during his senior season. But I'll tell you what, Aziz Ojulari has the skill set. He's just young. He's just inexperienced against bigger physical guys. And he's, 6'2", 235 pounds, something around that. But he's really young. He's only like 21 years old. So he still has time to grow. He still has a lot of experience left to, tap into, which hopefully will be translated to him from guys like Ryan Anderson, from guys like Lorenzo, even O'Shane, Ifeadi Odenibo. These guys, I really want them to help Aziz Ojulari get his grounding quickly, because if he does, and he ends up dominating during training camp, showing out during preseason, pairing him with Lorenzo Carter, Dexter Lawrence or Leonard Williams, that duo in my mind screams like crazy success. You know what I mean? I'm imagining what Aziz Ojulari can do in 1v1 situations against bigger offensive tackles with his speed and shiftiness at the line of scrimmage. Thinking about what he can accomplish in 1v1s, while Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence are soaking up double teams, stunts, soaking up those double teams, and Aziz, slipping through the A gaps. I think that for the most part, there could be one of the most dynamic duos in the NFC East in terms of pass rush. And we know Washington already has such a dominant defensive front with Chase Young. And I think that with the defense that we have now and Patrick Graham kind of going back to this cover one route and really focusing on rushing the passer and man coverage, which is why the third priority was going out and getting Adoree Jackson, who maybe we overpaid for, maybe we didn't. But if Adoree Jackson plays half as good as we know he can, he's head and shoulders above Isaac Yiadom, and our defense is one of the best in the league, right? As long as everybody stays healthy, this defense has the capability to be top 5 in the NFL, even better than that. So when I'm looking at this, Anthony, how do you think this defensive front will look week 1? How do you imagine those outside linebackers looking? Do you think it'll be more of a rotation? Do you think they'll be like, okay, we'll have Aziz Ojulari in there on, second and third down, and we'll have Ifeadi in there down 1 to stop the run? How do you see this happening? I know you like the kind of the 5-3-3 look. Like, how do you see this defense portraying their quality so that they can, step up and really have that top 5 season?
Yeah, I do like the 3-3-5 look, the 3-3-5 odd. This is that nickel look that the Giants have been running a whole bunch last season, at least. They ran a lot of zone coverage out of that. What I do see is, of course, a rotation within the pass rushing group, but I think you're going to see a lock of Leonard Williams on the field as often as he can be, a lock of Dexter Lawrence on the field as often as he can be. But then once you get to that second level, that's where things just get jumbled, right? Because you don't know who's going to be the weak side linebacker, the Sam linebacker. I think you're going to see the weak side linebacker be Jabril Peppers pretty often. He's going to be playing that will role, that money backer role sometimes in the middle of the field as well. And when you're talking about the base 3-4 defense, who are those two outside linebackers? Who are those edge rushers? I think you're going to see Lorenzo Carter, of course, if he's healthy. But then it's like, okay, who's number 2? Because Lorenzo Carter is going to be good as your Sam because he's kind of has that ability where he does drop into coverage occasionally and he can do those sort of things. But then with O'Shane Ximines, you don't really trust him to do that. Is he just going to be the other edge rusher, or is that where you work in Aziz Ojulari? Because Aziz Ojulari's playing style is kind of similar to Lorenzo Carter's. I've seen him when I broke down the film. There's a couple clips in there. If you go back and watch it, it's somewhere on the channel. There's some clips of there where he drops back into coverage, or he recognizes a running back leaking out into the flat, and he goes and just takes it away. Or he does a contain really well and then bats down a pass. Like, he's got those coverage instincts that you really want to see. That's why he is just the perfect scheme fit for this Patrick Graham defense, which is why, like we were just saying, he can be the steal of this draft just because it's the perfect situation for him. This is the exact defense that plays right to his strengths and his playing style. I'm so excited to see that happen, but I think I have a few different combinations that I've been working on. I've been doing a little mapping out for an upcoming Tony's Takes videos of, different defensive formations and sub packages for the Giants. And a lot of the times I do see a potential for them to have, let's say Aziz and Lorenzo on the edges, And then on the interior, you have like Leonard Williams and then Afadi, who's traditionally an edge rusher, but he's got that size to kind of move inside. I think that's where Afadi Odenibo comes into play, and I think he's another player that Giants fans should keep an eye on. A signing that went under the radar. We got the chance to talk to him in an exclusive interview. Again, go check the channel for that. But we were speaking to him, and he was saying, yeah, he played with his hand in the dirt for the majority of his NFL career, but before that, when he was in college, he was playing as a stand-up outside linebacker, an edge rusher, but he's got both abilities. He can go outside, he can go inside, and he's excited to be outside again, but he's also very aware of the fact that he'll be asked to go inside as well. I think that's really key for the Giants, just to have a rotational pass rusher, yes, but such a versatile one I think is really important. One that's going to be outside, one that's going to be inside, kind of confuse some offenses, kind of just go up against the best matchup available. And he was the one who told us, and we brought this up on the podcast a couple times, he was saying he loves to move inside sometimes because the number one worst athlete on the field on any given down is the offensive guard, unless they're Quentin Nelson, right? But the guard is always the worst offensive lineman, the worst athlete on the field, so he loves going up against offensive guards. So you have to expect that the Giants are going to move him inside and try and get him matched up with some offensive guards here and there, while also moving him outside and getting him back in his two-point stance. Afadi Odenibo, that's a guy I want you Giants fans to keep an eye on. A signing, Giants made a lot of splash signings, right? Kenny Galladay, Kyle Rudolph, and Dory Jackson. All of that overshadowed a couple of these, lower end signings that they made. Afadi Odenibo being the main one. This was a guy who I believe led the Vikings in pressures in 2018. I think he had 7.5 sacks. Like a really solid player, like a B player, like good starting level player, and he's not even a starter for us. I think that's really good depth to have for the Giants. I think it's a sign that went under the radar, so keep an eye on it. I think he's going to have a pretty big impact this year.
Ifeadi Odenigbo is one of my favorite, like, low-key offseason pickups, right? He's like the John Ross of the offense in terms of, like, the kind of a pickup that might go under the radar. Obviously, John Ross, he's going to have to compete for reps. He's probably behind Darius Slayton right now. But he has a lot of utilities, right? I would love to get him involved as a gadget player. You can use him in different ways. You can push him downfield. And he kind of went under the radar. 1 year, I think, $2.5 million deal. And I think Ifeadi Odenigbo got a very similar contract. 1 year, $2 million, something like that. And I think that he might be that low-key guy on defense that can make an impact. And like you said, in sub-packages, he can put his hand in the dirt and stop the run effectively. He's a power guy. He's not a speed guy. He's really, really powerful. And the Giants have been keeping their eye on him for a couple of years now. He is a representation of kind of what Patrick Graham wants to do with this defense. He wants players who can play multiple spots, different alignments, fill gaps. If there's an injury, Afadi, go play outside linebacker. If Dexter Lawrence goes down, go play 3 out, go play 4 or 5. He can go in and play those different alignments if need be, because he has the power to do so, but he also has the speed and pass rush moves to be an adequate option as a pass rusher. So I think Ifeadi Odenigbo is one guy we should really keep our eye on. He's really low-key, going under the radar right now. And another guy who I really want to hit on for a second at least is Ellerson Smith. The guy works out so hard every single day. I watch the videos every single day on Instagram. One of the hardest working pass rushers the Giants have on this roster, and I'm going to stand by that. I really think he is that hard-working of a guy. The guy just wants to be great. He wants to be great. That's personally how I feel. And his work ethic, from what I've seen, attests to that. So what do I expect from Ellerson Smith in his first year? He had 14 sacks in 2019, I think was his last season he played, because his college did not have, Northern Iowa didn't have a season last year because of COVID. He had 14 sacks in 2019. The guy gained like 70 pounds from when he joined the team in his rookie kind of freshman season in college to his sophomore season and whatnot, or maybe high school to freshman. He gained like 70, 80 pounds, like just ridiculous amount of muscle. He is a thinner guy, right? He's not a powerful pass rusher, but he is so fast and so shifty with the way he approaches his pass rush moves, right? He's very reactive, right? He's not going to go into a rep predetermined. He's very reactive to what the offensive tackles are giving him, which I really, really like about specific pass rushers. Aziz Ojulari is a little bit more predetermined in his method, which is not a bad thing. It's just a different approach. Aziz Ojulari loves to use that double club with his hands. He waits for that offensive tackle to make that move, and he just throws both of his hands down, really strong arms, really strong hands, and he just dislodges those that first initial attack by offensive tackles. They have to reset and then try and get him as he's running around, bending around the edge, and it's really hard for them to stop because he's so fast and quick. That's what I love about Aziz Ojulari. Problem is, he does it a lot, so offensive linemen, especially veterans, are going to notice that, and they're going to react. They're going to prepare for that move, and he's going to get stopped a couple times because of it. So Ellerson Smith, while not as strong, he absolutely has more of a undetermined approach to his pass rush, which I like, a little bit more raw. He has a lot of different things he's learning how to do. He's still a very raw pass rusher, right? He doesn't know all the moves yet, but he has the work ethic. He has the athleticism to be a very efficient player. And I think, he's very similar to Sean Taylor, former Miami pass rusher in terms of size, right? He's very much a smaller pass rusher. But as an outside linebacker, he can thrive. I think that his speed is going to be his biggest asset. And as he gets better with his hand placements, he gets better with technique and power. Transitioning back and forth is going to be how he creates confusion in the trenches. I really am excited to see Ellerson Smith, how he takes his game to the next level and how this coaching staff can really help him progress. As a 4th-round pick, nobody knew who he was. The guy scored some of the best athletic measurements out of any pass rusher in the history of the combine, right? That's how good his performance was. He really blew up the combine. He had the highest vertical of any pass rusher in the draft class. This kid is an athletic specimen. That's what he represents. You can't teach that stuff. You can't teach athletic prowess, superior athleticism. You can't do it. He has it. Now it's time to figure out how you can apply that to the game of the NFL and really apply the pass rush moves to it. Ellerson Smith is one of those guys I got my eye on, someone I think will make an impact as a rotational piece moving forward, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting, getting 50-plus reps by the end of the season, just because I think he's going to be that good. But again, it could take more time than that. I just think he's going to be a very good player.
Yeah, and I'll correct you really quickly because you did say Sean Taylor from Miami. I think you meant Jason Taylor from the Miami Dolphins.
Jason Taylor. Taylor.
Sean Taylor, the safety. Yeah, for a second, I was like a little confused, but I knew
I messed up the first name. Yeah,
Jason Taylor. You do that sometimes. It's all right. Everybody's human, right? But with
Ellerson
Smith, with Ellerson Smith, I think, you make a good point about him being a rotational piece for the defense. But one thing that I do want to keep in mind with all of these guys that the Giants bring in, the Giants are looking to get these guys to impact the game immediately. They want everybody to contribute, whether that's in practice or on special teams even. And that's where I think Ellerson Smith is going to impact day one. I think he's going to be playing on special teams. He had 2 blocked kicks in college, which is just rare that anybody in any NFL or collegiate career gets 2 blocked kicks. Even 1 blocked kick is rare enough. But to have 2 in your career, that's pretty impressive. He's, like Alex mentioned, a freak of nature with those lanky arms. They're like, his wingspan is just stupidly long, which is probably comes into play when you're talking about those blocked kicks. So I think, this upcoming season, it's his rookie year. I don't expect him, being a very raw player, hasn't played football since 2019, played at Northern Iowa. Don't expect him to be, making a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball. But on special teams, I think he's going to be a starter out there, and I think he's even got a chance to maybe surprise some people and make a couple plays.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really hope for Ellerson Smith, at least, because he is that good, right? I mean, he does have the qualities to be a fantastic player. Now it's just a matter of the coaching staff taking hold. And I think the Giants have, the biggest coaching staff in the NFL. I'm really excited to see, how that takes them to the next level, because I do think, if you're a Yankees fan right now and you're watching how badly the Yankees are playing, personally, I blame it on coaching. I know Hal Steinbrenner thinks that it's the players, but when you have some of the best players on the planet and you're not getting the most out of them, it's coaching. The best players, the best teams have great coaching. Look at the Patriots. Every single year, yes, they have some really great players, but they have no names that nobody knows about who make plays in the Super Bowl, right? Like, where do these guys come from? I have no idea. Guys like Julian Edelman, I think he was undrafted. These guys, they get the most out of them. They find ways to expose their talents. And I think that as for the Giants, they have the coaching staff now to maximize it. And I think Ellerson Smith is someone that they can really get their hands on and make a great player. So I'm excited to see that, Anthony. But I guess, that's really the majority of the pass rushers. I think let's one last segment. Do you think that there's anyone in danger of being cut? Because now they have 5-6 pass rushers. Who could be a cut candidate? If I was to guess, I would say maybe Ryan Anderson. And maybe Ocean Ximenez will be the 2 that could be potential cuts, if any of them. I mean, you can't cut Aziz. You can't cut Ellerson. You're not going to cut Afadi. You're not going to cut Lorenzo Carter. If there's any 2 guys, I don't think they're going to cut any of them, maybe one of them. But if there's any of them, who are you thinking could be on the block?
It's hard for me to see Ocean Ximenez getting cut, but in some degree I do. understand where you're coming from with that, just because he is kind of one of those older players that's, kind of not older. He's still a young player, but he hasn't really made the impact. He's been injured, and he is kind of a guy I think that they would clear some cap space with. I don't actually recall what the his contract looks like, but taking a look at all the edge rushers on the roster right now, there is one that we haven't mentioned because we forgot about, because he's probably going to get cut. Trent Harris, I guess that's one that we could say will likely be cut. I'm looking at the PFF roster right now. They have all of the players that are signed to the Giants. There's just a long list of edge rushers. I think Afadi is safe. Nico Lalos, unfortunately, might be a guy that gets put back onto the practice squad. I hope not. I really liked watching him play last year out of Dartmouth. One of those young players with just a story that you love to hear. Really underdog mentality. And I liked watching him go out there and play. But honestly, it's probably likely that he gets cut at some point. I think Raymond Johnson III was an undrafted free agent. He's someone who probably gets put onto the practice squad as well. Yeah. I think you could potentially see a Cam Brown make it to the practice squad just because they signed and added some extra guys in here. You got to remember, with these young guys, if they cut them, they're not saying goodbye to them. They're just putting them on the practice squad, and they're practicing with the team. They're pretty much grooming them for eventually when they're ready to be back on the roster. But with these older guys, like an Afadi, like a Ryan Anderson, for example, or even an O'Shane Zimenez, if they cut one of those guys, they're saying goodbye, and that player's going to go sign with another team, and there's no chance of getting them back. So they'll be more inclined to cut one of these younger guys. Carter Coughlin, though, he's moved on to the interior linebacker situation. He's moved on to that room. They want him to play more of the off-ball linebacker role going forward. So I don't think that he is going to get cut. I think that he's got a clear role that they want him to play in this defense. But Cam Brown, on the other hand, he's still the edge rusher. He's still a guy that didn't really have a clear defined role last year. He played a fraction of the snaps that Carter Coughlin did. So he's like an underrated one that I would say could maybe be dropped down to the practice squad, and maybe a couple others like, Trent Harris, like Raymond Johnson III. But the reason I think Ellerson Smith is safe is because he's going to be able to impact the special teams game. So I think Ellerson Smith is safe, and it's going to be hard to cut any of these guys. Nico Lalos, again, another guy who could be on the practice squad. Going to be hard to watch any of these guys get dropped from the roster. Really fun guys to watch. A lot of good stories that you want to root for, but unfortunately, that's the NFL. It's a business, and you're going to see some guys get cut that you don't want to see get cut. So we're going to have to look forward to that, or get ready for a little bit of sadness when we see these guys get cut in August, that is.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we have a lot of outside linebackers now, ranging from Ellerson, Aziz, Ryan, Fadi, Lorenzo, O'Shane Zimenez, Nico Lalos, Raymond Johnson, Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown. There's a lot of guys that are going to get cut, or at least put on the practice squad. I would imagine Nico Lalos, Raymond Johnson, maybe even Cam Brown get put on the practice squad. I just don't think we have enough roster spots. And think about this. A lot of those guys, 7th round, undrafted guys, reality is most of them will never make an impact in the NFL. They will never make a significant impact. If you have players like Afadi who are clearly more talented, you have really no choice. You kind of put yourself in a corner in that one. But I think
I'll say this, though. The impact that they do end up making, those 6th and 7th round players, typically, it's on the practice squad. That's why it's important for them. Yep. Practice squad is important, man. Yeah, it helps the starters get better.
And now, I mean, I talked to Brandon London, and he was like, when we were playing the Super Bowl, Giants, Patriots, I had to pretend to be Randy Moss. I had to pretend to be whatever they needed me to be that week, and it's like, how do you mimic that? But that's kind of how the practice squatters are viewed. They got to pretend like they're this player, that player, just to make sure that their guys are prepared for whatever's coming. And for the most part, I'm pretty excited to see this competition. Competition brings out the best in everybody, and I truly believe that. And I think they finally have a couple of really great players with really great qualities that will push each other to get better. We've been handing out starting jobs for years now, especially at wide receiver. Handing out starting jobs to Golden Tate, even to Darius Slayton, who ended up being a great player, but he was a 5th round draft pick, and there was no doubt he was starting year one. You know what I mean? Like, he should have been pushed by somebody. And I'll tell you what, I'm happy with the way it went out. Love Darius Slayton as a player. I think he's going to be great for us this year, coming back from that foot injury he suffered last year against Washington. But I'm excited, my friends. I'm really excited for training camp coming up in a couple weeks. So much to talk about when that time comes. I know right now it's kind of a dead period, but we got you, as always, with topics to discuss, different narratives and fun stuff that are going on in our minds and ideas. And make sure if you have any ideas or topics you want us to discuss, hit us up in the Discord or on the YouTube channel in the comment section. We've been taking care of as many as we can possibly find. So I really appreciate that. And we did a Daniel Jones one on his turnovers the other day, which is pretty painful to watch. But James doomed us to that one. But we love the topic, so we'll do whenever you guys have any ideas. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in to Fireside Giants. Make sure to subscribe below on YouTube. Notifications on Apple and Spotify and YouTube. As always, my friends, make sure to sign up to that membership, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.